Okay, so just coming on here to give everybody an update as to what all is going on regarding the situation with the Georgia Department of Corrections. For anybody that doesn't already know, we have catastrophic staff shortages at many of our prisons here in Georgia, uh, and some have been like this for years on end, dating back even to 2019 at some of the prisons. I know that Telfair hasn't been any type of adequately manned since prior to 2019, and there are many other prisons that are like that as well. So I am a former employee of the Georgia Department of Corrections. I worked at 5 different prisons. I fulfilled roles as CERT commander at three of the prisons here in Georgia, which that's just the emergency response team for the prison, kind of like SWAT full time for the prison to respond to any kind of incidents and just help maintain order. And also, I've been a post certified instructor since 2017. I fulfilled several full time positions as an instructor with the state of Georgia as well. And that's the position that I was in when I left the state of Georgia last year. And the circumstances surrounding my leaving were that I I had seen enough from with my own eyes of the conditions in the department to make the determination that something had to be done. Now is what I felt like last year, but really even before that. I mean, in 2020, I thought that something had to be done now, but just over years and years and seeing different things. I'll give you an example. About 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks before I left with the department, there was an officer at Washington State Prison that was down in the dormitory, and he got called to the next door building by the other officer because the other officer had an inmate being belligerent with her. Okay, this officer was the only male officer on the compound this day. There was maybe 4 other females there, and he walked over to the building, and when he got there, the inmate punched him, and it knocked him down to the ground, and then the inmate proceeded just to stomp him out there on the sidewalk and just beat on him. And nobody really was able to help him for minutes, you know, until some backup got there. In fact, it was down in a dormitory at Washington, and the first person to really get involved physically with getting the other inmate under control was the front entry officer. So the front entry officer had to run all the way from front entry down to the building. So, and the other 2 people that was around just, froze up. And look, with situations like that, because the whole situation should never have been allowed to happen. You should never have a one lone male officer on a compound of a male prison. That is asking for trouble. Anytime this officer gets involved in a situation like this, if somebody gets the better of him, then you don't have any backup. And then people say, "Oh, the women can do backup and all that." No, they cannot. Women cannot offer men backup dealing with the physicality of men. Okay, and that's just the truth. Anybody that has ever been in violent situations with men understands completely what it is. Okay, when men get violent, especially in a correctional environment, it's gonna take men to get him under control. Okay, unless the pepper spray or something works, or unless the taser works. Physically, a woman cannot go against a man. I have personally seen men in handcuffs manhandle 2, 3 women at the time. Okay, and that's not a shock. That's just reality. Okay, but so I seen this, or heard about this happening, and was getting told about the story of everything that happened surrounding that incident. And that's not the first incident like that where we have an officer that is in a situation where they should never have been there anyway. We should not have had this compound running at this catastrophic of a level. Y'all, when I say that our prisons have a problem, a catastrophic problem, I mean like I'm talking about, where you may have one able-bodied person there, or sometimes even none. Not we, because I'm not with the Department of Corrections anymore. The Department of Corrections leaves female officers by themselves on male compounds. Not by themselves like, oh, they're in the dormitory by themselves. No, no, no. There is no man even there to do anything. So I'll just ask everybody that watches this to just think about that for like 10 seconds and understand that the severity of what's going on. Okay? These people are at the mercy of the inmates. Okay? And look, I'm not saying that, the inmates are going to do something bad to them. Sometimes they do, like what we're talking about. But my point is that by allowing these things to be like this, we've set up a power dynamic in our prisons that is completely insane. Okay? Even at Johnson State Prison, before I left, this was the whole time I was at Johnson. I was only at Johnson for 1 year. Okay? From the moment I got there to the moment I left, most of your female officers, especially your female supervisors and people that walked around the compound, which there wasn't many, had what I called and what most people called inmate bodyguards. They had inmates that rode with them everywhere they go. Because there was no, look, there at Johnson when I was there, until we got a new captain in, there was only 3 able-bodied men, period, working there. Okay? So that's the kind of situation that you're in. 3 men total. I'm not talking about, this is all, and all 3 of us was on split shift. So when you're at night and things like this, it's completely insane. It's crazy. Okay? And the policies that the Georgia Department of Corrections has pushed over these last several years have led to this, by definition. All right? These are the fruits of the things we've been doing. And part of that is ACA, which is totally corrupt. Everybody knows that's working with the Department of Corrections knows that the whole ACA thing is all fallacy, because none of these prisons can even uphold the standards, even though it says that they uphold the standards on paper. It's impossible. There's no way. Okay, and that's part of this, because the Department of Corrections entire force, as far as this is what we need to do, has been making this happen. It hasn't been to make sure that we follow the policies of the ACA. Instead, it's been to make sure that we can get the paperwork together to say that we have this ACA, which all goes into lawyers and legality and so forth and so on, with that comes with the membership in the American Correctional Association. But we're not members, okay? Because we don't follow their rules anyway. We're not following the rules of any kind of prison, period, anymore. Like I say, we're down to no other. They're abandoned of security staff at most of these prisons. Most of these prisons don't have 10 able-bodied people working there. We have CERT teams with 1 person. A team, emergency response team of 1. It's just the commander. That's it. Okay, and these people are in such danger. And not only the staff, the inmates, because they're left down in the dormitories with no supervision pretty much ever. We got inmates that are dying and being down in the dormitory for hours and hours before anybody gets even notified, because there's no officers. Okay, so my whole point of even coming on here, speaking about my stories of being involved and telling this, is to bring to the attention of people, look, something has got to be done. There is no more turning a blind eye to this. We have to do something. It's obvious that the Georgia Department of Corrections, at least its leadership, is not going to do anything. They haven't done anything now for years and years. And we've had countless examples of these conditions being directly related to why we have inmates and officers, staff alike, being put in harm's way unnecessarily and getting harmed and killed. on both sides, staff and inmate. Staff and inmate are getting killed because we don't have the people in our prisons. We have to get people into these prisons as quickly as we can. We don't have time to wait and hire people. You can't hire people and bring them into that type of environment and expect them to stay anyway, or expect them to learn how to operate a prison, because the prisons are not operating like they're supposed to be regardless. So these new people coming in, they don't even understand how to do, how to operate a prison, because it's really that bad. Okay, we got crazy stuff happening, and throughout this whole week, I've been on the phone and in messages so much, just because since releasing the first videos, more and more people have reached out. Inmates, families, and staff alike, and ex-staff. Okay, and we got a lot of interviews going on. There'll be video footage getting put out as soon as it can get edited up and get ready to go. It'll be pushing out. And you'll get to see these interviews with myself and other former staff, and with it. Sometimes I won't be in it as well. I'll direct you to the TikTok page and to these other people that are involved in this. But y'all, the main point that I want to get across is that we don't even have to wait. We don't have to wait on this. Oh, well, let's see when the next thing comes out, and oh, it's going to be a big bombshell. There's way more than enough evidence here to call for action. Okay, and that's exactly what I do. That's what I did in 2024 when I wrote my statement. Call for action. It's time to stop ignoring this, and it's time to do something. Okay. As far as solutions go, and I'm going to read off some things that I've been notified of that are going on in our prisons. This, here is recently, just to give y'all kind of an idea of what exactly is going on. But as far as solutions goes, look, I was saying maybe National Guard, something to that extent when I spoke to the assistant commissioner when we had our Zoom call. But the Department of Corrections has enough employees to man the prison anyway. But what that's going to do, that requires us to stop. How about this? Since we don't follow ACA policies anyway, and it's all just a fallacy and a farce and pencil whipping, all these positions that are involved in making ACA happen, which includes a lot of instructing positions, sadly, and I'm sorry for y'all that work in instructing capacities, but look, we need specialized training in the state to deal with certain things. Yes. We need in-service. Yes. But we have to get the prison secured first. There's no excuse to have any of these issues like this. Okay. So as far as my call to action, a priority one post need to be manned 24/7 as it states in policy. Okay. So that means that Telfair State Prison can't run with 3 people, because it's got 22 priority one posts. So you need 22 minimum instead of 3. Valdosta, whatever it was, 26 or 27 priority one posts. You can't run with 4. It's not enough people there to even accomplish the mission. And everybody that's there is in undue danger because of that. Okay, especially when when you're looking at situations like I'm talking about, where there's not even an able-bodied person there. There have been over 10 incidents that I have seen where staff get involved in a use of force here recently, within these last 3 or 4 years, where a staff members get involved in use of force, and there's not a one of those staff members that is even capable of dealing with this situation. So it gets blown way out of proportion. Inmates have to come and help, and look, that is not a good look, for one, and for 2, it's dangerous for everybody involved. The staff in the prisons can't be reliant upon the inmates to protect them. If they are, then that sets up a bad dynamic, and then that's why you got no order in the prisons like we do now. Okay, so there'll be a lot more stuff coming out. As for me, if anybody's watching this that has any kind of care about this, and if you haven't worked in these environments before, or don't have a loved one in the prison, I would just say, look, this is a humanitarian crisis. Okay, it's not just the inmates. It's the officers too. Okay, and I don't look at one that much different than the other. It's unnecessary suffering is just unnecessary suffering. But I feel like, and everybody that I've reached out to, as far as trying to get this message out, a lot of people have said, look, there's already been such and such and such and such. There's been a lot of money spent on people trying to bring awareness to this issue, but nobody cares because it's the inmates and this and that. But y'all, as a society, we cannot allow this. We cannot allow the prisons that we're supposed to be having a justice system be turned into what they are now, which is just ganglands that don't have any security, don't have any kind of structure. We got dormitories, y'all, with holes in the roof. You can go in and just see the sky when you walk into the dormitory, because they get out on the roof every night and get drones from contraband, because there's nobody there to stop any of this. There's no telling what is inside of Georgia's prisons. Okay, they're completely unsecured and have been completely unsecured for years. Okay, so yeah, that's that. There'll be a lot more material coming out. I do want to just go over a few things that have been happening more recently, because a lot of the stories that I'm telling and the others are telling on the TikTok channel are from maybe 2, 3, sometimes even longer years ago. And I just want to give y'all like some current context as to what's going on today. You know, November the 6th or in the prisons in Georgia. So, but this ain't happened on November 6th. So this is within the last month, 2 months, some of these incidents that I'm going to be discussing here. So here we go. And I'm not going to say what prisons these are coming from, because these are coming from employees that work for the department, and they all have to fear retaliation for telling the truth. So this is all anonymous, but I got it from good sources in the prisons. Okay, and I've known people all over the state, because I've been heavily involved in corrections since I was 18 years old until last year, you know, except since last year. So I still have many contacts with people, and people reach out, especially after people are speaking out. And look, that don't mean that they hate the department. Look, I don't hate the department. I loved my job as a correctional officer, CERT team member, supervisor, instructor, all of that. Okay, I did. I would still be there now. But at a certain point, enough is enough as far as the letting these conditions be like this. Me, like I said in that statement, I'm done turning a blind eye to this. Either we're going to address it, or I'm not participating, okay? Because I have to answer to somebody when this is all over. And I'm just not. I'm not engaged in that. It's obvious that something has to be done. It's been obvious. So that's the way I feel about it, okay? But here's some examples of some things that are happening in the state of Georgia prisons over the last 2 months. So at one of our prisons, we have a building that the staff are scared to even enter because it's so dangerous. They got inmates that have several times at this particular building met staff at the door with shanks and knives out and telling them they can't come in, and then nothing gets done about it. They don't even get shook down. And look, I'm not even saying that that's the people's fault at the prison. You can't shake down. Who's going to do something to the guys when there's 4 people there, or 3, or 1? You can't do anything about it. Okay? So this is the Department of Corrections' fault for leaving their officers in this kind of impossibly horrible position to be in a prison like this and try to maintain order with no type of security staff there. Okay? But yeah, so we got inmates that won't let staff come in buildings, and nothing just gets, certain staff can go in and certain staff can't, and everybody's scared to go down there. You got a building, like I was saying before, that's got holes in the roof where they go out on with and get drones every night that it's just impossible to even fix anymore because they done tore it up so bad, and nobody's y'all, when these buildings get left abandoned, the inmates tear it up. I'm not saying all the inmates, but the ones that are like trying to get contraband and the ones that are doing these things like this, I mean, they're just going to destroy the whole place. And they have. These prisons, a lot of them are completely, they're going to have so much work done to them because they've just been abandoned like this. And the inmates just been tearing everything up because they can. Okay, and who's going to stop them? Is the main point of it. We got staff that have been threatened at visitation, and then the inmates just let stay in visitation because these staff have got so normalized to being in these positions of getting threatened all the time and they know that they don't have any backup there to do anything about it, that they just let it go. Just, oh, he threatened this officer, and the supervisor might talk to him and say, hey, why'd you threaten that person? And then just nothing happened after that. Got inmates sleeping on the sidewalk, which that don't even have to be allegedly. At Johnson, the whole time I was there, most mornings when you come in, there'll be inmates sleeping on the sidewalk. Okay, like homeless encampments, but inmates, because there's no staff, and then the inmates victimize each other. So then what ends up happening is, there's a large percentage of the inmates that don't even want to touch compound because of how dangerous it is. So they just want to stay in lockdown. And lockdown gets full, and then once it gets full, it overflows, and you end up with stuff like what I'm talking about, with inmates sleeping on the sidewalk and in holding cells and stuff like that. But even like at Johnson, it was so bad that the holding cells would be full, the visitation cells would be full, and then they still might be 4 inmates with mattresses sleeping outside of main control. All right. We got one officer. This is gonna, but I've seen this happen before myself, before I even left, where what happened was one situation, it's been about 3 weeks ago, is that an officer was doing visitation, but they left one brand new officer doing visitation, and then the inmate visitor started having sexual relations with the inmate in the visitation room, with children in there and everything. Okay, so these are the type of things that happen when you have no kind of security staff around. It's crazy stuff like this is going on. Okay, at Johnson, before I left, it was where visitation would get left with no officer sometimes. If you had 2 staff members there and one was in visitation and something happened, then they would have to leave, and then the inmates would just be left up there with the visitors. And just thank God that nothing has happened with that as far as visitors getting assaulted or anything like that. But it's that's a horrible situation to be in when we can't even protect the public. We can't protect the visitors that are coming in. Can't protect our officers. Can't protect our inmates. Can't do any of that. Okay. So also we got inmates doing door sheets and all types of stuff. We got inmates pulling up. Y'all, it's done got so bad with the contraband and the drones that they don't even do emergency counts anymore when the drone comes in. Like I was saying in one of the TikTok interviews, there's a bunch of prisoners that might go weeks without getting counted but once or twice because of the severeness of the shortness of staff. Okay, so anybody that wants to support this, it's hard to even tell you what to do. Okay, because the thing is that people like me have already spoke out within the department and just get silenced and retaliated against and tell you better resign or we're about to fire you type of thing. And not only that, but staff that I know have been personally in contact with representatives in the state of Georgia, in the House of Representatives, and nothing. And these conditions are just left like this. There's way more than enough evidence out there for us to stop this The commissioner of the Department of Corrections knows that these things are like this. They have cameras all over the prisons. They can see what's going on. They know that there's no staff in a lot of these prisons that is still like that. And they know that it's completely dangerous and unacceptable. But it's just swept under the rug, you know. So that's what I'm here for, is to bring light to it, and that's exactly what I'm gonna be doing. And I thank y'all for watching, and just reach out if you have any kind of stories or have anything that you want me to address, or if you know anything that I need to know. But as far as I'm concerned, nobody has to know much more. If y'all want to hear my stories and hear what went on with these conditions being like that, I mean, I'm down for it. And I do want to tell my story, and I do want to hear the stories of others. But my main thing is not on that. My main thing is on solutions to this problem, okay, which is a very serious problem that needed to be addressed head on years ago, instead of doing the other things that we was doing. And we still haven't addressed it. So I'm here, and I'm gonna publicly call for these things to be addressed just as loud and as much as I can, because it's inhumane. It's inhumane to allow these things to be like this. And thank you all for listening, and have a good night.